Hi everyone, good morning and welcome to our Nurturing Self-Reliant Groups webinar with WEvolution. I'm Gillian Duddy, I'm the Membership Engagement Coordinator, and I'm really pleased to welcome Noel, Matthias and Eleri Birkhead today. So Noel is the Managing Director of WEvolution and is responsible for introducing the Self-Reliant Group approach to the UK. Eleri is Partnership Manager with WEvolution and is responsible for working with organisations who seek to be part of the Self-Reliant Group also. So for those of you joining us for the first time, it's great to have you, and as always the recording of the webinar will be available on our website along with the slides from the session afterwards. So just before I pass over to Noel and Eleri, just a few housekeeping announcements from me before we get started. So throughout the sessions, your microphone should be muted, but you can ask a question using the Q&A function on your control panel, which you'll notice at the bottom of your screen. Noel and Eleri will be taking questions after the session. You will also notice your control panel has a chat function on there as well. So please use this if you want to share observations or thoughts with other attendees, but please do not use this for questions as they tend to get lost in the thread. So that's everything from me just now. So thanks again for joining us, and I hope you enjoy the session, and I'll now pass you over to Noel. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome. It's nice to spend this time first thing in the morning with you virtually. I was just thinking in the past, especially in the pre-COVID times, we would have done it through in-person meetings, and you would have had a reason to sign up, and we would have introduced ourselves and asked each other what we do. I would have probably cracked a little joke just to start off in a hilarious tone, and of course some of you would have laughed and others would have kept quiet, and I would have known that it's a bad joke probably and not repeat it. But on this occasion, I can't even start off with a joke because I might not hear any one of you laugh. So I'll probably just give it a go and start off with a little exercise. In fact, before I do the exercise, in the chat box, if you want to just type away your own expectations of this session as to why did you sign up, but also in terms of if you have questions about what I'm sharing with you, what Eleri, my colleague, or Amanda, who's from one of our groups here, if you have a question or want to expand on something that we say here, please feel free to put on the chat for everybody's benefit. And of course, if you don't like what I say, you can very happily mute me, and I won't feel bad because I won't know it. So let's begin with this little exercise. I think Eleri has started sharing the screen here already. What you see in front of you is an empty Coke can. Or just imagine it's an empty Coke can. I'd like you to spend just a minute maybe just writing down all the different uses of an empty Coke can. And once you've finished doing that, if in the chat box you can simply type away the number of uses, just the number that you've come across, that you've come up with, that would be great. So a minute to come up with the uses and quickly just type the number in the chat box. The clock's ticking away, folks. Another 30 seconds. Okay, and if folks have finished, then if people want to just type in the number of users you've come up with in the chat box, that would be great. Uh, if you are too shy to give the number, that's also all right. You don't have to do it. I'll just wait for a few seconds if you want to do that and complete that. So I don't see any numbers coming up. So I'm just assuming that probably nobody wants to put in, or maybe I'm just not able to see it. Whenever we've done this exercise with what I call experts, uh, they have always done it in groups, and certainly it's been a comfortable exercise doing it in groups because it starts pushing each other's boundaries, and they have come up with 10, 15, and the maximum number of users they have come up with a few more minutes than a minute, has been around 27 users of this. I see Karen there saying she's got 5, and that's great, Karen. Well done. And I don't know whether others want to put in their numbers or just too shy. But in their groups, people have come up with 27 as the max. Now, whenever we've done it with people from the communities, let's call them, for the purpose of this conversation, ordinary people. Yeah, whenever we've done it with them, they have come up with more than 20 every single time. In fact, one of the little groups with 100 users of an empty Coke can. So here's a little predicament that I want to present to you. On one hand is your housing association that, like any other business in this world today, wants to do more for less, who then have this situation where the people you work with, your residents or your tenants, face a number of social risk factors, including precarious employment, poor financial health, poor health, in fact, debt issues, for instance. And on this side, you have your residents, whom I'm now going to be calling unexpected entrepreneurs. Not just people with problems, but unexpected entrepreneurs. So you have these dominated by programs, projects, services. And I'm going to suggest that instead of all of that stuff, could we create a space there called a self-reliant group? So right at the start, I'm positing a notion that we spend less time thinking about what project should we create next, or what service, to start focusing our attention on creating a space called a self-reliant group. And other words that we use for this space is a context and environment. And over the next few minutes, I want to share with you, along with Eleri and Amanda, what is this space called Self-Reliant Group, or an SRG? Where did we steal this idea from? What's happening as far as impact is concerned? And finally, how on earth are housing associations missing out on this juicy story happening all over the UK? I want to begin first by giving you a little insight into what a major funder like Nesta thinks of an SRG. Eleri, do you want to show us the next slide? And so what Nesta says is that it is an important citizen-led approach to tackling poverty. And the SRG has the potential to radically improve the lives of many people and move them from a place of a life of poverty to a life full of possibility. And I think that situates already what the system, and probably a major think of SRGs, of which there are now about 150 of those in Scotland, in England, in Wales, and in the Rotterdam, in the Netherlands. The question then is, what is this space? What is this self-reliant group that we keep speaking about? The next slide will give us the simple description of an SRG. Eleri? I've underlined some key words there, which simply state that an SRG is an informal group of people. It's not a constituted group. It's just an informal group of people, especially women. 91% of the population, or the single parent population in the UK, is a women-led population. And within an SRG, one of the first things they do is they start saving money, their own money. This goes against so many of our cultural norms, so much of our emotions. 52% of the population in Scotland has less than £1,000 in their savings accounts. And you might have your own statistics of the residents that you work with, the quality of their own savings. Within SRGs, the savings are often used to lend to their members so that they could take care of consumption crisis or enterprising needs. Here are a group of friends who support each other, who are constantly learning and go on to establish micro enterprises or income generating streams. And what you see is ultimately women in control of their lives and taking care of the next generation in their families. It's such a simple space, and yet so much happening within this space. So where did we steal this idea from, really? Many years back, 2010 to be precise, a group of 13 women started coming together to reflect on their experience of living in a deprived community. These 13 women came from 7 deprived communities in Scotland, or in Glasgow to be precise, like Milton, Possil Park, Easterhouse. And they were reflecting on 2 or 3 key themes. The first theme being, why are people who live in deprived communities, why do they get labeled as dodgy people, as good for nothing, as weak and vulnerable, as people needing their lives to be sorted out? What's happening here? Why does the rest of the country have these mental constructs of a deprived community and people in those communities? The second one was, why do people have to come together in a group and wait for a lot of permissions before they even get started? Why does the community group need a constitution? Why do they need to access funding? Can't they just start off? Can't we just have a just do it culture? And the third thing was, as women, they found that their aspirations were just the same. They were about a better life for their kids. It was about some peace of mind. It was about some financial security. How do they go about doing this? And so the 3 themes led them to come up with one key question. The question was, how do people in poverty manage not just to survive, but thrive in a place where there is no safety net, like the one we have today? The welfare system, for example, which is the safety net. So what if we go to a place like India, where there is no safety net, or if there is a safety net, what does it look like? And how do people in grinding poverty move on and move out of poverty? So they went to India in January 2011, and over 10 days interacted with hundreds of women all of the women who had self-organized themselves into what they call self-help groups. And what is a self-help group? The next slide will give you the definition of a self-help group, which is, hey, the same as the self-reliant groups here. And that's where we stole the idea. And what they saw was a movement that had begun by the poor people in India in 1982 and had now grown to 12 million groups across the country and has become, in fact, the official strategy of the Indian government to eradicate poverty. And what our women from Glasgow saw was a movement that did not shame people with labels. They saw a movement where the social and the economic coexisted in the same space, not compartmentalized as we have it here. And above all, they saw a movement where women were in control of their lives, their destinies, and their families, and beyond their neighborhoods. And the women from Glasgow said, this is awesome. What if we were to do this back home in Glasgow? Could we start revolutionizing the entire landscape where people can self-organize themselves into this little simple space called self-reliant groups and move on? And so the first group of women came together in 2011 in the Proven Mill community of Glasgow. They started saving, no constitution, mind you. They saved 17 pounds in their first few weeks and decided to start a lunch club for people in their community. Again, no access to funding, but banking on their own resourcefulness. In 2 years' time, they had about 7,000 pounds of their own, both in savings and the little profit that they made from the lunch club. They took a little loan from WEvolution, 5,000 pounds, I think, which they repaid over 12 months. And they started a fluff and fold laundry business, which is still operating along with the lunch club out of the Proven Mill church in the community. And they are now about 9-10 years old already, and it's been our longest or oldest crew. And like Proven Mill, there are, as I said, about 150 groups across the country, about 35-40 SRGs here in Glasgow, in Inverclyde, Dundee, Edinburgh, in Paisley. Most of whom directly through WEvolution here, and a number of other groups established through our partner organizations in Fergusley Park, for example, through the Tana Hill Community Centre, in Edinburgh through the Bethany Community Trust, in Leeds through an enterprise called Trust Leeds, for instance. And what you have, therefore, is an idea that is slowly filtering through the landscape in Scotland and beyond. So what's happening within this SRG? What are women doing? And what is what I call the cobweb of impacts that can be seen within a self-reliant group? I'm going to ask Eleri to put on a little video for us.
Hi, I'm Trishy Gannon and you are in my shop, which is number 26 in Gurrick. I rent out space to crafters and sell goods on their behalf. I became involved in the WEvolution movement about 4 years ago, just after I had had my youngest, Angus.
Do you want to introduce the shop that we're in?
Yeah, Mummy shop.
SRG stands for Self-Reliant Groups, so it's just encouraging people to find ways to make life better for themselves rather than relying on others. I think the best things are you bring out the best in one another and it becomes like a family. You're kind of creating your own family and it's really inspiring. Life is very short, so sometimes you just got to step outside your comfort zone and just do it, just be. My advice is, unless you've tried something, you're never going to know, and you've got nothing to lose, so go for it. See what it's about. Join the SRG movement.
Thank you, Eleri. And if Trishi hasn't inspired you already, we have Amanda McKinley who has joined us for this webinar. Amanda, hello, good morning, and thank you for joining us today.
Morning.
Amanda, would you like to introduce yourself in terms of the name of your SRG and what does your SRG do?
Yeah. So, as Noel says, my name's Amanda. I'm one of the Paisley SRGs. The SRG I'm in is called Craft Buddies, and as the name suggests, we're a group of buddies who craft. So there are about 7 of us in the group, and we all have different skills, different talents that we bring to the table, and we craft together and then sell those things on at local craft fairs.
Okay. And how did you come together, Amanda? What was the purpose of coming together?
Well, we're slightly different from kind of the normal SRG template in that we were already together as a group of friends. We were all connected through the local fibromyalgia support group in Paisley.
Okay.
And the craft group grew from that, from us as a group of friends wanting something else to connect us other than the condition, you know, looking instead of being kind of focused on the condition, we wanted something else as a shared interest. So we came together as a group of crafters through that. And then through lots of happy circumstances, we managed to connect with WEvolution, and things just, both as a group and for myself personally, have really taken off since then.
So what you are saying is you didn't want to be just described as an issue-based or a group dealing with a problem. You wanted to be more.
Yeah, I mean, we're still very much focused on sharing our stories and sharing, you know, that part of about us, but it is with very much a focus of, okay, well, we had this condition, but we've found things that help us cope and that what we can turn into a positive.
And what does being in an SRG, how is that different from having been a group earlier as a group of friends?
I think, and I know the term for the description for SRGs is it's informal, but I think it did give us more of a form. It gave us slightly more of a structure. You know, I'm not going to say made it more professional because that's not the way it is, but it did kind of, you know, it changed the way we work things. It changed the way we look at things. You know, it opened other avenues and other doors to have a safe space to try other things as well.
And what avenues did it open up for you, Amanda, personally?
Me personally, well, you mentioned about the ladies in Glasgow who accessed finance from WEvolution. My group were incredibly supportive and trusting of me, and again, this shows about the whole WEvolution family thing, you know, the aspect of as one, as a group, but still advancing individual dreams and individual hopes. So Craft Buddies as a group borrowed money from WEvolution that enabled me to start up my own business and take on my own premises for my own business, and the confidence from that grew from being part of the WEvolution movement.
So could you say a little more about your business, Amanda?
Yeah, sorry, that's actually where I am now. I'm actually in my office at the moment. Yes, so my personal business is the Butterfly Room in Paisley. I'm a wellbeing and creativity coach. So things like mindfulness, meditation, again, bringing in the creativity with therapeutic creativity. So what I'm doing still very much ties back to my SRG and what we did with them. You know, yeah, and I kind of do talks for groups. I work with local community groups, providing sessions for them.
Wow.
I work with individuals. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. And how is it going during these times, Amanda, these COVID times, which are very challenging?
Well, a few of us have actually spoken. I think having a chronic illness kind of prepares you for being ready for anything. So, honestly, it turned out to be, in a bizarre way, a blessing, because I was terrified of being on camera before lockdown, but I now have built up the confidence where I can go live every week. I do regular live stuff. I'm absolutely fine doing stuff like I'm doing with yourself now. You know, so it's been, again, it's that thing of, okay, here's a problem. I can sit and wallow. I can sit and give in and just not, or I can see it as a challenge and a way to work through it.
Wow, wow. And does your group still save? And what are those savings used for, Amanda?
The savings are used for, as you said, we can borrow if we need to borrow something. Sometimes if there is perhaps, well, previously it was if there wasn't enough in the profits to cover the cost of maybe craft fairs or some equipment, we would initially take that from the savings. But at the moment, our group's in a good place. Well, we were before lockdown kicked in, and we're doing the regular craft fairs. We were, in a place where the savings were pretty much there, so that we could access them if we needed to.
Yeah.
So again, it's about having that extra safety blanket. Maybe not having to go somewhere else to extend yourself financially. You have the savings there to fall back on.
Yeah, and Amanda, you've sort of certainly, despite the challenges, are looking like on your journey to success. And do you still need the group around you? And if so, why?
Well, yeah, because it helps to have a sounding board. It helps and actually in terms of the WEvolution family as a whole, there's other SRGs, that you connect with, and there's other people that, act as that sounding board, that support, that, as Trishy said in the video, that family, it becomes so much more than just the group, it extends further.
Yeah. So your SRG then is interacting also with other SRGs, and you keep using the word family, which is quite a precious word, isn't it? It denotes personal relationships with people. How does this family sort of shape up between SRGs? How do you make it happen?
Well, I mean, even so, I think it's just you bond because it's shared experiences, it's shared challenge. There's shared challenges that just people that understand your journey, that understand the struggles. So it does pull you together. And even things like where the butterfly room is now is run by someone I met through an SRG, and she has space where people can sell things, and there's SRG members doing that. So there's this one thing where there's like there's 3 or 4 different SRGs with a connection to this one project. So it's people move on with their own things, but there is very much that way about looking how you can include and how you can support and how you can, it's that whole thing of we rise by lifting others.
Wow. Okay.
So we kind of, when you do well, you want someone else to do well too.
Yeah. And what about conflict in your group, Amanda? How do you manage that? Do you get others to help you out, or have you built up some reserves to, energy to deal with the conflict?
We've actually been quite lucky in our SRG. There hasn't been an awful lot of conflict, but there are maybe outside people, or sometimes then if there is a conflict, you're looking maybe to your WEvolution staff to say, can I sound you out about this, about how we deal with this, or, you maybe ask someone else to mediate or something like that. But we haven't really had an awful lot of conflict. I think, when it is like grown adults, there's less of that, and as I said, there is that shared journey, that shared experiences. The conflicts are always tiny and, not really insurmountable.
That as human beings, certainly our groups, our SRGs do have a level of conflict because, some groups break up, some groups reform. Your experience has been of a group that has stood resolute. And sort of dependent on each other, sometimes having recourse to another staff member maybe just to help out, but so much of it seems to be self-managed. Is that true?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's one of those ones you kind of you plod on, you do your thing, but you know that there's other people there, again, as I say, in the background if they're needed. But it is very much that, it's your thing. There's nobody overseeing it. There's nobody forcing it. There's nobody leading. And as I say, it allows for kind of group growth and individual growth. So it's
and Amanda, one of the things I remember was last year, I think you made a trip to Leeds to meet with the SRGs there, and now they have come up in Leeds. what was your experience? Do they look the same as here?
Actually, and again, this shows how the family thing extends, is I still follow it via social media. I'm still in touch with you, and I still follow the journeys of people down in Leeds. And it did feel very much, you know, I was a bit nervous going myself all the way down there, not knowing anybody. But you walked in, and instantly there was this, you know, you felt as if it was like, you know, you were visiting your cousins.
Wow.
You know,
Wow.
it felt that family thing, you know, and looking at the projects that they're doing again, that I've been following some of the stuff they've been doing during lockdown and finding ways to be on their own individually but pull things together. It has been really interesting to watch as well. So
Wow.
it's funny, although they're partner organisations, they still seem to adopt the same ethos and the same passion and so say that same family connection.
That's an incredible thing, isn't it? The same ethos that you mentioned, that beautiful word. The ethos is the same.
Yeah.
Any SRG, whether it's in Manchester, Leeds, or Rotterdam, even, isn't it?
Yeah, because I've been to Manchester as well. I went with Julie and Karen once. We went to one of the gatherings in Manchester, and
Yeah.
again, it's that same thing of, you know, people keen to hear what you have to say, keen to share experiences and connect. And you know, actually, it happened in Manchester that I was asked to kind of speak a bit, and I shared some of my story and mentioned the fibromyalgia. And it turned out there was a girl in an SRG in Manchester, same
Wow.
condition. So, you know, there's things that connect people no matter where they are.
Yeah. And so you mentioned this word ethos. How is this different from the ethos that we see in other groups, for example, without condemning or judging other groups? Why is this ethos special? Why is it different?
I don't even know if I can put what it is into words. You know, as I say, it seems that there's something, you know, I mean, if you could bottle it, you'd make a fortune, because it's just, there's something that kind of brings people together. You know, there's something that, as I say, it's this, the shared experiences, the shared situations, you know, and the fact that people are so open about sharing their stories and sharing their experience.
Mm-hmm.
I think that
yeah, sorry, I interrupted you there. Carry on, Amanda.
It's almost like that. It's a safe space. I mean, that's what I would say about the SRG movement. It's a safe space to just be as you are, to have your good days, to have your bad days. And as I said, that grows as a group, but not that you are just a group. You know, you don't sacrifice your own dreams. You know, to be part of an SRG, it's a way to grow your own dreams as well. You know, so you grow as a group, but you can grow as an individual.
So the ethos is both collective, but also the individual, isn't it? It sort of pulls all of it. It is social as much as economic.
Yeah.
It is issues, but also aspirations.
Absolutely.
It holds all of it together within the same space.
Yeah, it's so much. You know, it's like those three small letters. You know, that small thing, Self-Reliant Group, holds so much under its umbrella.
Okay. One final question, Amanda. Where do you see yourself and your group 5 years from now?
The group, I think, will continue just as we are. You know, we enjoy the time together. We enjoy what we do. You know, and it is just about continuing with that and looking for new ways to do it, because obviously it's a challenging situation at the moment. You know, there's not as many craft fairs. We can't run as many things that we used to. You know, so I think it is going to be a time of transition and figuring out the best way to move forward with that. And I suppose to a certain extent, individually, I'm the same. You know, I'm looking forward to just continuing to be of service to people, continue doing what I'm doing and extending that, and hopefully getting back to more community work as well, because and again, I think that's why I gel with WEvolution so much, because there is that sense of community and that sense of wanting to have an impact on your community. So, you know, I'm hoping to get back to that soon as well.
Yeah. Now, Amanda, I said I'll ask you a last question, but then I wanted to ask you one little question before I finish off. You said there are 7 members of the group. Are all 7 members doing different sort of micro enterprises like yourself?
Yeah, well, most people kind of have the little bits and pieces that are separate, you know, because they had the confidence to do it through the group. Hazel, as well as the craft work she does, has expanded to do some Neil's Yards.
Okay.
which is like holistic toiletry, not holistic toiletry, just holistic health and beauty care products.
Okay.
Alan takes his printing knowledge, and he does personalised badges and things like that. We have Evelyn, who's a fantastic jewellery maker. Steph, who's a photographer, and she does these diamond art things. We have, there's so many of us, just kind of it's own little things, but very much together as well.
Absolutely. And as you were speaking, I was thinking, gosh, in your little group of 7 people, there's so much being achieved. Yeah. And almost every one of them starting off and sustaining to some extent a little enterprise of their own, isn't it? Which is phenomenal, absolutely. Not dependent on anybody. And I was thinking, across the SRGs, there are about 500, 600 women and a few men. You mentioned Alan. So we have to give credit to the fact there are a few men around. 600 women involved in SRGs, and potentially, to take a very conservative estimate, at least about 300 odd micro enterprises. Having begun from people, Amanda, correct me if I'm wrong, would have been considered people with health issues or problems rather than as producers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't even know how many of our group considered themselves. I mean, I had always hoped to get to where I am now, but the sources of support were sorely limited. The sources of, I mean, without, and I've said this to you before, Noel, so, and I say it probably every time you have me on to speak to someone, where I am now would not have happened without WEvolution. Someone with my health condition, I'd had to give up my employment because of my health, so financially I was not in a good place. No one would have loaned me or given me startup money. Without WEvolution, that probably wouldn't have happened. There wasn't that, because it is, as you say, it's like too much of a risk.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
WEvolution saw the risk, because I know we had the chats. It wasn't just like a handout. It was I had to pitch for that money. I had to apply. But you saw the risk, but you also saw the possibility. You saw the potential. And I think that's what WEvolution do so well. It's like, yes, there are people who have their challenges, but you encourage them to see the possibility, not the problem.
Thank you, Amanda. And I'd certainly say that while WEvolution has done something, I think a lot more has been achieved by you yourself and your SRG. And to all our listeners or those who are viewing this and Amanda's story, there are so many big gems of wisdom and insight into how organizations could be working to build spaces like SRGs, which do not limit people, but create a context for them to trust themselves, to figure out their solutions and move on to better places in life. Amanda, many thanks for joining us today. You've added so much meat to what we've been saying or sharing about SRGs. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care. And I need to go and get back to work now, so I will be leaving the call, but it's been lovely meeting everyone. Take care.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And Eleri, could you just show us the sort of next slide in terms of how does WEvolution tend to this context or the space? We do it through several ways, and I quickly want to mention one of the ways we do it, as Amanda said, was to kind of provide some support around group dynamics. We do provide group loans up to £200 and £1,000 are completely interest-free, and up to £5,000 is given at 7%. There are no credit checks done at all. What we do is to consider group performance. Are they saving? How are they using that money? Do they have a bank account? Are they keeping a record of their meetings? Very simple ways of ascertaining group performance that then becomes their pitch to get the money. We have just introduced during COVID times something called trust money, which is in effect £500 from WEvolution to every eligible SRG in Scotland regardless of they being started by WEvolution or our partners. And this £500 is to be used only for internal lending, for consumption crisis, or for enterprising needs. And finally, we offer a variety of business support online these days, including branding, how to price your products, for example. And there's a host of stuff happening there that is then led and supported through SRGs themselves without even WEvolution being in the picture. I'm going to hand the next bit to Eleri, who will answer the next question. How on earth are housing associations missing out on this wonderful story? And what can you do about getting on board?
Thanks, Noel. I can't actually see anyone, so I'm hoping you can see me, but I will move on to the next slide. So it's great to be here and have the opportunity to talk to everyone today. I'm sure you've been inspired by what Noel has said, and we would absolutely love to have housing associations on board and integrating the SRG approach into the work that you guys are doing on the ground. And there are several ways we can help make that happen. So I'm going to offer those to you today. So first of all, we can offer training for all of your frontline staff. We do that using a DIY SRG program, which we've developed over the years. We've managed to move it online, so if you are keen to do this during COVID times, we can do that online. We usually take up to 10 to 15 people on the training. We'd probably look at excuse me, around £2,000 per batch of trainings. And that would provide you with the opportunity to have a bespoke training that's relevant to your work. We'd fit it around you so that it was at a time that suits you and your staff, and we'd make sure that the training is tailored to your context. So if you go for that option, that's what you will get. If the training goes well and you have people set up and ready to go and implement and nurture SRGs within your housing associations, we would make sure that those particular SRGs would have access to all of the virtual business training and group loans and trust money that Noel has talked about. So over the past few months, we've been running business advice workshops online, which have been very well attended. They help groups think about things like product development, how to make a product that sells well, how to take a photo of a product and make it look good on Instagram, how to use Instagram, and how to make your product unique in the market. We also support service-based SRGs who might be doing, I don't know, catering or cleaning, although that is a challenge at the moment. Gardening's a popular one. But we would be there to offer that kind of support and training to SRGs. And like I've said, they would have access to the loan and trust money services that WEvolution have. I think trust money is a great opportunity for people to really nurture their idea and run with it, but also support each other mutually. So yeah, I think that's a great opportunity to take up. And finally, we do take an applied approach to the way that we work. We try our best to take whatever data and impact we see from each group and what learning experiences we have with each group and apply that to what we do as we move on. And one way we've been doing that is to gather data from our partner organisations, take that data and create a report to hand back to the partner organisation, who then use that report to I don't know if they're making a funding bid or if they want to demonstrate their impact to the community, they have that. WEvolution has written that for them. So that's another thing that we can offer you guys if you do decide to take this idea forward. And I'll just very briefly show you a bit more information about the DIY SRG training that you can access. It's usually 3 days. We do it over 3 mornings, and we'd have practitioners walking you through the theory and some of the practice that is used to ensure that SRGs in your area are supported in the best way possible. We do monthly DIY SRGs online. I can send you information about them. They're much less bespoke, but they kind of cover some of the ground that would be covered in the bespoke training as well. So that's just there for your information. I'm just going to pass back to Noel, who I think is going to close for us now. No.
Thank you, Eleri. So there's your opportunity, my friends, to hop on board and get this rolling. I want to just share a little story before I end, and then if folks have got questions, we'll be very, very happy to answer them. It's a little story of an SRG member who spoke in front of 60 people, a number of them experts from the health area, from the poverty industry, from housing associations, in fact, and other areas, policy think tanks. And she shared a story about being part of an SRG, and everybody there applauded. Fantastic, amazing story. And then once the applause died down, one of the audience members stood up and said, "I really enjoyed listening to your story. You've come a long way. However, I work with a number of people who are weak and vulnerable." That's the phrase she used for the people she worked with. And I don't think it's the SRGs are for them. And I don't think they are ready for it. And this SRG member just gave a lovely smile and said, "You know, by all accounts, the world will treat me as a weak and vulnerable people or a person." She said, "I am an ex-prostitute. I'm a recovering addict. My children were taken away from me by social services on several occasions. So yes, the society would consider me as weak and vulnerable. But here I am sharing my story with you. And here I am part of an SRG where all I'm doing is creating a different future for myself and my family." And I'll end with that, and probably just to say that our task, and your task, therefore, my invitation, is not to create yet another project or a program that is often going to be time bound and funding constrained. I'm inviting you to start looking at creating context, a context like SRG. SRGs are not the solution. It's not an ultimate answer to all our problems. But what they do is to create those contexts for people to find their own answers and become unstuck. And our task is both to create those contexts and tend to it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Noel, and Eleri as well. That was really good, really interesting to listen to. If anyone would like to connect with Noel or Eleri directly, their contact details will be made available as well, along with a recording of the session and the slides on the website over the next few days. I'm just going to check. I don't think we've got any questions at the minute. But if there are any, as I said, you can contact either Noel or Eleri directly as well. If you've got any suggestions for us for any future webinar topics, please do let us know, and we'll be delighted to hear your ideas. And the current schedule is on our website just now, and we're adding dates to this all the time. So I'll just check again. Oh, they've got a comment. So just Colin said, very interesting presentation, definitely opportunities here for our communities, thanks. So that's from Colin. Yeah, great. So I think that's us for the day. So thanks again to Noel and Eleri for hosting the session, and thanks to everyone for joining us. And we look forward to welcoming you back to another webinar soon. Thank you.